Hi and welcome to Pure Yoga. I want to share with you a yin and yang stroke practice that will help give a little bit of activation but also a little bit of stretch and rest. So if you want to bring yourself down onto the mat, have your feet mat width apart, bum into the centre, head to the top of the mat. And then just make yourself comfortable here for a few moments. So maybe pushing into your heels, lifting your bum, tucking your tailbone back towards your heels and the lower back into the mat. And then just give those hips a little rock from side to side. Turn the palms up, bring the shoulders down and away from the ears, and then just give those shoulder blades a little pinch together to create some space across your chest. Taking a turn of the head in both directions, bringing that head back to a centre space when you've done so. Then closing the eyes, relaxing the jaw. Have a scan from the head down to the fingertips, down to the toe tips, just having a little check-in with how your body feels as you've arrived on the mat. Being aware of any tight spots, noticing any injuries without any judgment or dwelling on those spaces. So I invite you through this practice maybe to keep the eyes closed and maybe have the room lit fairly dim so you can really switch into your internal self. Bringing your focus now to the sensations of the body and the senses of the body. Noticing the sense of touch, the parts of the body that are touching the mat. Being aware of the clothing that's touching the skin. The taste on the tongue. The smells around the room that you're in. The sounds of the inside of that room. And maybe the sounds of the outside if you can hear them. If those eyes are closed, noticing any colours or shapes on the back of the eyelids. But if those eyes are open, just noticing what's in front of you, what's ahead of your gaze, and maybe what's in your peripheral vision. Start to bring the focus then to your breath. Just watching that breath for a moment as it enters and exits your body. Noticing the rise and fall of the belly and the rib cage. Being aware that every breath in you take, those lungs expand and maybe your diaphragm pushes down towards the belly. And every breath out you take, that diaphragm raises back up and squeezes that air back out the lungs. You may choose at this point to start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, with a slight restriction at the back of the throat. Or if you want to continue the exhale out of the mouth, feel free to do that. Starting to bring the feet together at the bottom of the mat. Push that lower back into the floor and tether the ribs and hips. Then start to lift the hands up and over the head and take an interlace of the fingers at the top, trying not to flare that rib cage, keeping a little abdominal contraction. Send your feet over to the right side, maybe hooking your left foot over your right foot. Send the arms and the shoulders over to the right, making that half moon shape on the mat. Then maybe bringing those hands onto the top of the head and trying to bring that right elbow a little closer towards that right side body. Stretching down the left side body, breathing into that left side rib cage. So when your mind starts to wander with this slower practice, have a one-point focus. Maybe that's something in front of you if the eyes are open. Or maybe you bring your focus back to the breath. Not necessarily pushing your thoughts away with aggression, Just taking yourself away from your thoughts with that 1-point focus. Bring the arms back to the centre, the feet back to the centre. Reach up through the fingertips, point through the toes, flare the ribs, arch the lower back. And then bring that lower back to the mat. Bring the hands back to interlace. Walk the feet over to your left side, right foot maybe over your left foot. Bring the arms and the shoulders over to the left. And then maybe bring those hands onto the top of the head, encouraging that left elbow a little more towards that left side body. Start to breathe into that right rib cage, expanding inhale and contracting on the exhale. If it's more comfortable to open the eyes, or keep those eyes closed. Noticing those colours and shapes on the back of the eyelids. Bringing the hands and shoulders back to the centre. Bring the feet back to centre. Reach back up with the fingertips, point through the toes, flare through that rib cage, arch the lower back. And then bring the hands back up and over with the palms facing down. Bring a bend into both knees, bringing those feet in towards the bum, hip width apart. Tuck the tail down. And then pushing into the feet, raise the hips all the way up towards the ceiling. And when they get to the top, hold that space. Create some space across the back of the neck by tucking the chin in slightly to that chest. Try not to let those knees flare apart, and push into the big toe mount, little toe mount, and the heel of the foot. If you wish to roll those shoulder blades together underneath the body, maybe take an interlace of the fingers underneath the bum, and then push those fingers back into the mat. Squeeze the bum to maybe lift those hips up a little higher. Take long breaths with that spine in extension, a stretch of the hip flexors and a contraction of the glutes. Releasing the hands back out and flatten the palms to the mat, roll the shoulders back out and slowly bring the back to the mat. When that back meets the floor, bring your right ankle onto the top of the left thigh and turn that right knee out to the side, toes of the right foot back towards that shin. And then lifting your left foot away from the mat, bringing your left knee in towards you but keeping your right knee turned out. Push your right foot into the left knee, resist with the left knee, push back into that right foot. Try not to use anything with the hands, you're just using muscle engagement of that left hip flexor to keep that left knee drawing in. Then taking a hamstring stretch, pushing your left heel up to the ceiling, the left toes back towards the shins, maybe pushing that left leg in a little closer, but keeping your sit bones close towards the mat, the shoulder sockets pushing down into the floor, creating some space across the chest to allow those inhales and exhales to come into that space easier. Then bringing that left foot back to the mat and bring the arms out to a T shape, palms facing down. Keep your right foot where it is, move your hips to the right and drop your right foot to the left side of the mat. And once that right foot has met the floor, try and keep your right shoulder grounded. And then maybe turn your gaze to that right hand. Maybe your left hand comes onto the right knee and squeeze it a little closer towards the torso. Thinking about the lower back here, maybe you took your tail towards the heel of that left foot. You can stay here holding on to the right knee or bind onto the big toe of the right foot and push that right heel away to the left side, straightening through the leg, engaging through that upper right thigh to straighten that right knee. Push the heel away, toes back towards the shins. If you can't bind, you don't have to bind. You can just push that heel out to that left side without that bind onto that foot. remembering that breath is your 1-point focus. Try to take them in and out slowly. Then bringing a bend back into that right knee. Bring the left hand back to T-shape if it's not there already. Bring the knees back into the centre, the gaze to the centre. Move the hips back to the middle. Bring the feet hip width apart. Bring the hands back by the sides of the body. On an in-breath, push into the feet and raise the hips up, coming up one vertebra at a time. And as those hips arrive high, bring a little tuck of the chin to the chest to create the space through the back of the neck. Choice to roll the shoulder blades here if you wish and take an interlace of the fingers at the bum. Pushing into all parts of the feet. Try not to let the knees drop out. Squeeze the bum to engage the back chain, to stretch the front chain. And then releasing the grip of the hands, palms face down, unroll the shoulders and slowly bring those hips back down to the mat with as much control as you can take. Bringing your left foot now onto the top of the right thigh and turn the left knee out, toes of the left foot back towards the shin. And then bring your right knee in towards you using hip flexor strength. Resist that right knee pushing in with the left foot and bring that knee a little closer if you can and push the left foot back into the right knee. And then taking a hamstring stretch down that right leg, sending your right foot up to the ceiling, heel pointing up, toes of the right foot coming back towards the right shin. Holding that space with muscle engagement around that hip flexor. Muscle engagement around the outside of the left hip to keep that left knee turned out. Then slowly release that right foot back to the mat with control. And then bring both hands out to the side, T-shape, palms facing down. Move your hips to the left. Drop your left foot to the right side of the mat. And maybe gaze over to that left hand, keeping the left shoulder grounded. Bring your right hand maybe onto the top of that left knee and squeeze it towards the torso so it comes a little closer. Tuck your tail towards that right heel. You can stay here or bind onto that left big toe with the fingers of the right and then push that left heel out to the side of the right, engaging the upper left thigh to straighten that left knee. If you're gazing to the left hand, you're taking a full twist through the spine from the base to the top, helping with digestive system. Working those internal organs to make them work a little easier. Then taking a bend back into that left knee and bring the right hand back to T-shape. Bring the knees back into centre. When the knees arrive in centre, gaze back up. Bring the hips back to the middle. Bring your feet back to hip width apart and the hands down by the sides of the body. Push into the feet and raise the hips all the way up towards the ceiling on an in-breath. And on an out-breath, slowly release those hips back to the mat. On an in-breath, bring the knees to the chest and the forehead to the knees and squeeze. And on an out-breath, release feet and hands back to the mat. 2 more of those. Push into the feet and raise the hips to the ceiling. Chest towards the chin. Out breath, lower the hips back to the mat. On an in-breath, bring the knees to the chest and the forehead to the knees. And then release those feet back to the mat and hands to the floor. Last one, in-breath, take the back into extension. Squeeze the bum at the top. Out breath, lower the bum back to the mat and the spine back to neutral. In-breath, knees to chest and forehead to knees and squeeze in flexion. And then take the hands and feet back to the mat, back to neutral. Keeping the hands where they are, point your right heel up to the ceiling, engage the upper thigh to straighten the leg. And then send your left foot up to meet your right foot. Engage the upper left thigh to straighten that left leg. Maybe your eyes are still closed here. We're stretching down that back chain of both legs for a moment before we take it into a little strength work. Keep pushing that lower back into the mat and try not to let it lift away as you slowly lower the right leg to a hover, holding that hover for a couple of breaths. If you need to come a little higher with that leg, if the lower back's starting to leave the mat, lift it a little higher to take the stress off that lower spine. On your next breath in, slowly raise that right leg back up to meet your left leg. Take it slow without momentum. And then slowly lowering your left leg to a hover. Your right heel is staying up. Right leg and left leg are both straight. Keep pushing that back into the mat and tethering through those ribs and hips. Relax the shoulders, the jaw, the face. Slowly raise that left leg back up to meet your right leg. We're going to take it one more both sides. So lowering with your right leg to a hover. Again, don't let the tension come into those shoulders or the jaw. Keep the lower body working and the upper body relaxed. Lift that right leg back up to meet your left leg. And then slowly lower your left leg down. Keep that lower back pushing into the floor. Keep everything safe around that lumbar spine, the lower part of the back. And then slowly raising your left leg back up to meet your right leg. And then bring a bend into the knees. Bring those knees close to the chest. Push the shoulder sockets down, the tailbone down. Then take a hold of the creases of the knees. Then rock up and down the spine a few times, making your way up to a seat and back down. And then when you've done 3 rocks, bring yourself to a balancing point. Maybe the toe tips are touching at the moment. If they are, find your balancing point now. Lift the toes away and bring your right foot in line with your right knee and your left foot in line with your left knee. Grow tall through the spine, relax through the shoulders, draw them down towards the hips. You can stay here or straighten the right leg with the toes pointed, engaging the upper right thigh, and straighten the left leg so we find that V-shaped position, full boat pose. Holding on to the legs for a little support. Breathing easy, holding everything nice and still if you can. Then taking a bend back into both knees, tuck the feet under or swing the legs around, bringing your hands forward, your knees back, untuck the toes and take a couple of rounds of cat-cow. Your breath in lifts the head, lifts the bum and drops the belly. The breath out, we fold it back in, chin to chest as the tailbone tucks. Take it in and out of these 2 places, extending the front side body on inhale, and then extending the back side body on your exhale. Moving with fluidity through that spine. A little softness through the elbows so you're not hyperextending through those joints. Remember, you can still keep your eyes closed here. There is no reason to open the eyes through the whole of this practice unless you need to see the screen to look at me. But if you focus on my instruction, there will be no reason to have to open those eyes. The next time you come into a neutral place, tabletop position, if you have a block or a book, just bring that block to the front of the mat. Just place it to the side, ready to use in a moment. And then step both feet back into a plank position. And from plank, lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back. Try not to fuss too much with those hands and feet, because we've done a fair bit of hamstring stretching at the start of practice. You may find this down dog okay to stay in stillness, but if you do wish to paddle the feet, maybe bending one knee at a time. Just moving those hips a little until you feel more comfort of bringing those legs back straight. Pushing that chest back towards the thighs, relaxing through the head, maybe having a little nod and shake here. If you're ready to come to stillness, bring those heels as close towards the mat as they can reach. Push firmly into the hands, firmly into the feet, lift the hips high and push that chest back a little further. Keep your weight in your left foot and just bring your right foot onto the back of that left calf. And draw that left heel down a little more and try and keep the hips level. You can massage the back of that calf with the right foot if you wish, just to help that connective tissue give a little more and those muscles to relax a little quicker. And then bringing your right foot down to the mat and place your left foot onto the back of the right calf, right heel towards the floor. And then maybe massage up and down that right leg with that left foot. These calves can get notoriously tight, especially around the back of the knee. And then bringing that left foot down to meet the right foot. Take a gaze forward to the right side of the mat and bring your right foot to the outside of the right hand. Choice to keep the back knee lifted if you wish, or bring that back knee to the mat, whichever works for you in this space. If your back knee's lifted, we're encouraging that left heel back as far as we can and pushing firmly into the toes of that left foot and the sole of the right foot. The right knee is hugging in towards the right shoulder. You can stay up onto the hands, or if you want to use a block or books if you have them, you can actually bring yourself down onto forearms and just let yourself relax to the inside of that right thigh. You can also bring your forearms all the way down to the mat if you wish, but try and keep that right knee squeezing in towards you. Or if neither of them feel comfortable and you want to stay up on the hands with a little bit of a bend in the elbows, bringing that chest a little lower. Find your space. Find maybe a challenge for you, or just find your place of comfort. Just trying to keep that head in line with the spine, not letting it hang. Just to activate the muscles at the back of the neck to keep that heavy head lifted. One more breath here. And then release that left knee down to the floor if it's not already. If you've used a block, place the block at the side. Bring your left hand slightly forward, your right hand onto your right knee. Push that right knee out to the side and come onto the knife edge of the right foot. Then turn and twist the torso around to face the back of the mat. Push the right hand into right knee, resist with the right knee and push back into that right hand. Feeling some activation through that thigh, particularly the inside of the right thigh, the inner adductors. Little rotation as you gaze back. Then turn and face the chest back to the front of the mat and heel toe the right foot close to centre but right side. Start to walk the hands back towards your left knee and bring your right toes back towards your right shin. If your hips have moved over to the left, bring them neutral to the centre. Take a long breath in here and a long breath out, abdominal contract, and allow that torso to fold a little closer towards that right leg. Try not to curl too much in the spine. Try and keep the tailbone lifting slightly and those rib cages pushing forward towards those toes of the right. Keep using your long breaths. Maybe your Ujjayi breathing still, slight restriction at the back of the throat, using just the nose, or maybe you're taking your exhales through the mouth. Just make sure those exhales come a little longer to allow yourself to fold a little deeper. Then starting to walk your hands back towards your right foot, Plant your right foot back to the mat and sink your hips towards that right heel. Just take a moment stretching through that left hip flexor by squeezing that left bum cheek. Then you can stay here if this feels good, or bring a bend into your left knee, bringing your left foot in towards your bum. Now you can stay here with the activation of that hamstring on that left leg, or just move your left hand slightly forward and bring your right hand behind to take a hold of that left foot. Turn the chest and then maybe draw that left foot in towards that left bum cheek. Squeeze the left bum cheek and push the hips a little lower. You should feel a good stretch down the front of that left thigh. If you can't reach the foot with the hand, just keep activating through that hamstring. It will make that hamstring stronger, which can be notoriously weak if you're sitting at desks a lot. Just holding this place wherever you are for another breath. And if that left foot's lifted, release the left foot back to the mat and tuck the toes under. Place the hands back either side of the right foot, lift the left knee. Step your right foot back to meet your left foot. Find plank for a couple of breaths. Wide fingers firmly pushing into the hands. That chest space pushing in between the shoulder blades. We're drawing the belly back, we're squeezing the upper thighs, the glutes, heels back, crown forward. And then lift back up with the hips and squeeze the heels back to find a down dog. Weighting your left foot and your right foot onto the back of that left calf, maybe give it a little massage with that right foot. Squeezing the heel down a little further, keeping both hips nice and level if you can. Little softness through the elbows so we're not hyperextending on those arms. Then bringing your right foot down, bring your left foot onto the back of the right calf. Maybe give that a little massage. May help that heel come a little closer to the mat the more you massage that space. And then bringing it back to down dog. Squeeze the heels back for a breath. Then gaze towards the outside of the left hand and step your left foot forward by the side of the outside left hand. Sink the hips low. You can choose to drop the knee here if you wish. Squeeze that left knee in towards that left shoulder. Now it may feel different for you on this side. You may feel tighter in the hip flexor on the right. You may be tighter around the outside of that left hip. You can stay up on the hands, or you can use that block or book again and bring it underneath the gaze, bringing the elbows maybe on top, but keeping that head in a good long line. Maybe you find your elbows down all the way to the mat. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the same as you did on the other side, as both sides can be very different. If you want to stay up on the hands and bring a little softness into the elbows and the chest a little lower, but keep that neck strong and keep that head lifted rather than hanging to the mat. Taking one more breath wherever you are. And then releasing your right knee back to the floor and untuck the right toes. Bring your right hand forward, move the block if you've used it, and then bring your left hand onto the left knee, push the knee out, come onto the knife edge of the left foot, and then turn the torso to the left and twist through that waist. Gazing back to the back of the room. Push the left hand into the left knee, resist and push back. Make it an active stretch. Then turning the torso back forward to the front of the mat. Heel toe the left foot back in towards centre, but just left side of it. And then walk the hands back towards that right knee, bringing your left toes back towards the left shin. Make sure the hips are neutral in the centre and not pushing to the right. Take a good long deep breath in and elongate that spine, push the ribs forward, and on an out breath, fold a little deeper over that left leg. Keep using that breath to find your space. And remembering, focusing on that breath keeps you present and aware of what's happening in your body. Knowing that when we do yoga, it's very easy to injure yourself. And if you've injured yourself, most of the time it's because you haven't stayed with awareness and mindfulness as you've moved, because your mind has wandered somewhere else. Start to walk the hands back towards that left foot. Plant the hands down and sink the hips towards that left heel. We have options here of bending your right knee and bringing your right foot towards the bum using the hamstring to activate, or bringing your right hand slightly forward and taking your left hand behind to take a hold of that right foot, squeezing the right foot in towards the right bum cheek and turning the chest to the left. Maybe squeeze the right bum cheek a little more to push that right hip a little lower, and you may feel a little more sensation in that right thigh. Keep using the breath maybe to bring that space a little closer, right foot a little closer to right bum cheek, or if you've not taken a bind, use the activation of that right hamstring to bring the foot closer. And then turning the chest back to the front, release the right toes back to the mat and tuck them under. Plant the hands either side of the left foot, lift the right knee. Step your left foot back to meet the right foot, finding plank position. Feet hip width apart, hands shoulder width apart, everything engaged as you hold this space. Gaze is just down, either in between the fingertips or just a gaze slightly in front. And then lift up with the hips and squeeze the heels back to find a downward facing dog again. Maybe have a nod and a shake of the head. Gazing towards the heel of the right hand and bring your knee to meet and the shin to the mat. Untuck the back toes. Take a hold of your right foot. Bring it underneath the body to an angle between 35 and 90 degrees. Then bring that left hand back to meet your right hand. Take a good long deep breath in, elongate the spine, choice to stay high or come down onto forearms. Maybe you come on to stack hands and forearms and bring that forehead on top. Or maybe you reach yourself far forward with the hands and the chest to settle over that right shin. Wherever you found yourself, make sure you're in a place of comfort. If knees are angry, come out of the pose by tucking your back toes under and lifting your back knee. And maybe make your way to child's pose whilst we take this pose. Or you could always take cat-cow to articulate the spine. This pose isn't accessible for some. You don't have to bring that right foot at any big degree. You could always keep it slightly under that right thigh. Take long breaths. Be aware of the outside of your right hip that we're stretching into. Just keeping that thought on how that side feels so we can compare it on the other side. Comparing with no judgment. Just noticing the differences that we have throughout our body. We never mirror image, so we have differences on both sides. So if you're down now on forearms, come back up onto the hands. And we're going to step back safely by tucking the back toes under and lifting the back knee. Stepping your right foot back to meet your left foot to find plank. A nice long line from the crown of the head to the heels. Then lift up the hips, take down dog. Let's neutralise those shoulders and those hips without fussing with those hands and feet. Take a nice long deep breath in through the nose and maybe a long sigh out through the mouth. And then if you check back into your Ujjayi breath, slight restriction at the back of the throat, using just the nose, or continue your exhale through your mouth. Bringing your left knee to the heel of the left hand and untuck the back toes and send that foot slightly back. Take a hold of your left foot, bring it underneath the body, your range of movement that feels right. Bring your right hand back to the mat. Find a space here. Maybe the hips rock a little towards that left heel. Choice to stay up on the hands or come down onto forearms or stacked forearms with the forehead on top, or the hands reaching far forward to the front and the chest laying over that left shin. Whatever works for you on this side. And then bring your thoughts back to how it felt on the right, compared now to what it feels on your left. Sometimes when we hold these poses a little longer, things come up, you notice sensations. Sometimes those sensations are good, sometimes they feel like you want to get out of the pose as soon as you can. Your practice, move if you need to. Find maybe cat-cow if you want to go there. Then coming back up onto your hands if you're down on your forearms. Coming out safely by tucking the back toes under, lifting the back knees, stepping your left foot back to meet your right to find plank. And then lift up with the hips, squeeze the heels back, find downward facing dog. Just take a moment in down dog. And then bring yourself down onto your knees, bringing your knees to the width of the mat. Your feet, to the width of the mat, your feet together at the back and your bum back towards your heel. And from this position, reach forward with the hands and just let the head settle in between those arms. Every in-breath, maybe walk the fingers a little further forward, and every out-breath, try and push those sit bones a little further back. Breathing into that long line of the torso, down from the armpits to the hips. And then threading your left hand underneath your right armpit and turn the palm up. Let the head settle back over that upper arm. Then if you want to find a little rotation and a bind, bring your right hand behind you. Maybe find clothing or the left thigh. And then push into that left arm and lift the right shoulder up and away from that mat. Opening through that front chest, using the muscles of the deltoids to lift that right shoulder up. And then let that right shoulder come back to the mat. Reach your right hand back forward, your left hand to meet, and just let the chest sink into neutral. Then threading your right hand underneath your left armpit, turning your right palm up, settling the chest over that upper right arm, just stretching through that shoulder, maybe into your biceps, maybe you feel it a little in your triceps. And then if you want to find a bind, bring your left hand behind you, take clothing or right thigh, and then lift that left shoulder up by pushing into the right forearm, turning and twisting slightly through that lower back, mid-back. Then releasing the left shoulder back down. Bring your left hand back forward, your right hand to meet, and find that neutral spine for a breath. Then making your way back into a tabletop position. Knees under the hips, heel of the hands under the shoulders. Step yourself back to plank. Let's hold plank just for a couple of breaths. Heels back, crown forward. Soft elbows so there's no hyperextension in that joint. Then lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back, find down dog, just for a breath. And then we're going to make our way into a seat. So gazing in between the hands, step or jump forward, or swing the legs around, whatever works for you to find this seated position. When you find your seat, remove flesh from under the sit bones. Bring the toes back to the shins and push the heels away and activate those upper legs. And on an in-breath, raise the hands up to the ceiling, stretch the sides of the waist. And then pivoting from the hips as you breathe out, to reach those hands forward to wherever they reach. Maybe shins, ankles or feet. Take another breath in here, elongate. Push those rib cages forward and shoulders down. And on an out breath, fold a little deeper by abdominal contracting. If you've managed to reach the feet, maybe you take an interlace of the fingers around the bases of the feet. And use your breath, find your space. Get to your range of movement and then just notice if there's anything that's holding you back. Maybe your muscles have tightened as you've gone into the stretch first off. Maybe you can breathe that tension back out. Then starting to walk those hands back up the legs, lifting the torso back to stack. Bringing a bend into your right knee and drop that right knee out to the side. Sole of the right foot into that left thigh. Turn and track the shoulders towards your left foot. Then reach the hands up to the ceiling, stretch the sides of the waist again. And then start to lean forward with the torso, bringing the hands down again to where they reach. Take another breath in, lengthen, lift, push the rib cage forward. And your breath out, maybe fold a little deeper over that leg. Trying to gaze slightly forward towards the front of the left shin, maybe to the ankle, maybe to the toes. You don't have to be coming this deep, just work with what works for your body. Then starting to walk those hands back up that leg. Bringing your right hand behind you, left hand onto the left hip. Push into that left heel and lift those hips up high. Maybe send that left hand back, point through the left toes, point through the left fingers. And feel that stretch from the fingertips down to those toes. Little softness through that right elbow. But firmly push into that right hand so we get support through the shoulder. Squeeze the right bum cheek to maybe lift those hips a bit higher. And then maybe turn the torso to maybe send that chest a little more towards the ceiling. And then slowly bringing that bum back to the mat. Turn the torso back to the front. Bring your right ankle onto the top of the left thigh and keep the knee dropped out. Bring your hands behind you, fingertips pointing back and bend into the elbows. Bring your left foot in towards the bum, keeping your right knee turned out, and then straighten the arms and push that chest towards that right shin. Take a couple of breaths here. Allow the outside of that right hip, know that it's taking its stretch. Let it start to trust you. And then maybe bend the elbows again and bring that left foot in a little closer. Push the chest a little closer towards that right thigh. Maybe you can walk your hands in slightly. So you're really working the stretch on the outside of that right hip. Taking one more breath here. And then bending back into the elbows and release that left foot back to the front of the mat. Bring your right foot out and slightly away from your left thigh. Reach forward with your right hand and bring your right shoulder level with that right knee. Turn the palm out to the side and then wrap that hand around to take a hold of the thigh on the right. Reach your left hand forward, turn the palm to the left. Send it behind the back and maybe you can find fingertips near that right hip. Take a long breath in, elongate the spine, and a long breath out to maybe fold a little deeper towards that left leg. Keep pushing into the big toe mount of that right foot. Toes of the left foot active back towards the shins. Rib cage is pushing forward. You're finding abdominal contraction towards that leg. Remember, the bind doesn't have to happen. It could be holding clothing or onto a piece of the body. Doesn't matter about binds. Then lifting the torso back up, release the bind if you're bound. Bring your right foot now over the left thigh. Reach your left hand up, hook left elbow over to your right knee. Bring your right hand behind you. Take a breath in, elongate. Take a breath out and rotate. Maybe gazing towards the back, sending your right shoulder back, your left shoulder around. Pushing your left elbow into the right knee and resist and push back. Notice that right hip switching on to push back into that left elbow. Use your out breath to rotate, your in breath to create space. And then turning back around to the left side of the mat, just to counterpose your twist. Then turn the torso back to the front and bring your right heel into the groin and drop the knee out to the side. Bring your left foot in towards you. Take an interlace of the fingers underneath that left foot. Then find a balancing point at that lower part of the spine. And then start to push that left heel up, engaging the left thigh to straighten that left leg. Long breath in, grow tall through the spine. Long breath out, feel grounded through those sit bones. If you need to move the hands a little lower to the ankle or maybe up the shin to help that leg get a little longer if you are anatomically not set up for having the hands round the foot. Think about your little toe and your big toe being equally away from the face. So if one is further away, realign it so you get that good alignment through the foot. One more breath here. And then bend back into the left knee. Send your left leg long, your right leg long. Take a little paddle of the legs. And before we take our opposite side, bring your hands behind you, either fingertips pointing in or out. Take a bend into both knees, knees hip width apart. Then push into both hands and feet and lift up with the hips. Squeeze the bum, maybe raise the gaze, finding a reverse tabletop. Lift as much as possible. And then slowly send those hips back and in between the hands, push into the hands, keep the hips high, roll onto the heels. Take a moment there, pushing firmly into the hands. And then lower the bum back to the mat, straighten through the legs and give those legs a paddle. So this time we're taking a bend into your left knee and dropping your left knee out to the side, sole of the left foot into right thigh. Toes of the right foot back to the shins. Reach up with the hands and then start to fold towards that right leg, bringing the hands to wherever they reach. Take a long breath in, elongate. Long breath out and fold a little deeper, maybe bringing that head towards the shin or somewhere close. It doesn't need to be this deep. And if you can reach the feet, maybe interlace the fingers around it. Have you kept your eyes closed through the whole of the practice? Has the mind wandered? Have you used that one-point focus of the breath to bring you back? Start to walk the hands back up that leg, bringing your left hand behind you, your right hand onto right hip, push into the right heel and lift the hips up. Maybe send the right hand back, point through the toes, the fingers, soften the left elbow, push into that left hand. Maybe turn the chest a little more up to the ceiling, squeeze the left bum cheek. Feel that stretch all across that right side. And then slowly lowering that bum back to the mat. Turn the torso back to the front. Bring yourself left ankle onto the top of the right knee. Bring the hands behind, either fingertips in or back. Soften the elbows, bring your right foot in towards you And then straighten the arms and push the chest towards the left shin. Let that left hip know you're working some stretch. And once it's starting to get used to it, maybe you can go a little deeper by bending the elbows again and bringing the foot a little closer, straightening the elbows, maybe walking the hands in slightly to bring that chest a little closer to that left shin again. Then bending back into the elbows, releasing that right foot out long to the end of the mat. Bring your left foot slightly away from that right shin. Reach forward with your, right thigh. Reach forward with your left hand, turn the palm and bring that left hand onto the left thigh. Reach your right hand forward, turn the palm, bring that hand behind you and maybe find an interlace of the fingers around that left hip. Take a long breath in, push the ribs, push the chest forward. And a long breath out and use that abdominal contraction to bring you a little deeper over that right leg. Keep active through that right foot. Keep active through the upper right thigh, pushing the knee towards the mat. And then releasing that bind, lifting the torso back up. Bring your left foot over your right thigh. Reach up with your right arm. Hook your right arm over the left knee. Bring your left hand behind you. Breathe in, elongate. Breathe out, rotate. Left shoulder back, right shoulder around. Push right elbow into the left knee. Resist and push back. Switch on the muscle on the outside of that left hip and thigh to push back into that right knee. Still active, right feet, into that left knee. And then counter pose with your twist. Turn around to the right, hands on the right side of the body. Then turn the torso back forward. Bring your left heel into the groin. Bring a bend into your right knee. Take an interlace of the fingers underneath that foot. Then lean yourself back and then straighten the right leg up. Toes back to the shins. Engage the upper right thigh. Lift tall through the spine. Relax through the shoulders. If you need to move your hand down that right leg, feel free. Try and encourage it in towards you a little more. Remember, try and keep the big toe and little toe level with the gaze. Then bringing a bend back into your right knee. Send your right leg long to the end of the mat, your left leg to meet the right leg and just take a paddle of those legs. So you have a choice here with your back bend to take a bend into the knees again and come to reverse tabletop, or bring your hands behind you, fingertips pointing in or out, and take it into reverse plank. Reverse plank's a little harder than the reverse tabletop we did between the last two. So push into the heels if you're with me, lift the bum, and as the bum lifts to a long line, point through the toes, raise the gaze to the ceiling, push firmly into those hands, squeeze the bum. If you're in reverse tabletop, really pushing into the soles of the feet, trying to bring your hips in line with the knees and the shoulders. Taking one more breath wherever you are. And then with control, slowly bring that bum back to the mat. Lift the shoulders to stack over the hips. Make sure your bum is in the middle of the mat as we make our way down onto the floor. So bringing your arms up to shoulder height. And slow with control, using abdominal contraction, your long limbs to help support you. Bring yourself all the way back to the mat, one vertebra at a time. And then when your head and shoulders meet the floor, Bring your arms to cactus arms, palms facing up, elbows in line with the shoulders. Take a bend into both knees and heel toe the feet out to the edges of the mat and drop the knees internally. Tuck your tailbone under and flatten off your lower back. Then bring your knees to the right, your gaze to the left, and just let the knees settle for a breath. And then if you want to bring them deeper, right hand onto right knee and squeeze that knee down. Squeeze the inside of the left thigh to bring the left knee a little closer to the mat. Take a moment there. Then if you want a slight variation, heel toe your left foot a little closer towards your left elbow. Then bring your left hand to bind onto that left foot. Reach your right hand out to the side and send it up to the ceiling, up to the back of the mat. And then lean over with that right hand to the left side, taking a little arch in the waist on the left side body. So you could have stayed with just the knees over to the side, or take this variation, stretch down the right side body. Then coming back out, bring that right elbow back to a cactus arm. Heel toe the left foot back to where it came from. Left elbow back to cactus arm. Bring the knees back into center and let the knees drop internally. And just make sure the spine is neutral in this space. So we're going to be taking it the other way. Tuck your tailbone, push your lower back into the mat. Let the knees drop over to your left side. And once the knees have dropped over, maybe bring your left hand onto your left knee and push it down. Squeeze the inner right thigh to bring that knee down a little further. You can stay here, gazing towards the right elbow, or heel toe that right foot in towards your right elbow slightly and bring your right hand to bind onto that top of the right foot. Turn your left arm out and then send it up to the back of the mat. Then lean over to the right side, stretching the left side waist, contracting the right side. Keep squeezing that right knee towards the floor. Breathe into that left side body. Then realigning the shoulders and bringing your left arm back to cactus arm. Heel toe your right foot back to where it came from and cactus the right arm. Bring the knees back into center, neutralize the hips. Make sure that spine is a long line. Then take the heels back together. Soles of the feet stay together and let the knees drop out to the side. Have a little rock of those knees, massaging that lower back. Bring then the knees together back into the middle, the knees in towards the chest. Bring the elbows to inside of the knees. Take a hold of shins, ankles, outside of feet or big toes. Then let the heels stack over the knees come in towards the armpits and the thighs to the outside of the ribs. Soles of the feet pointing up. And then maybe just have a little rock of that body from side to side. Maybe knee tapping your left knee to the left and your right knee to the right, trying to control it so you don't go too far one way or too far the other, using the muscles around the abdominals to control that rock. And then when you next come back to center, bring the knees together in the middle, straighten the legs out, push the heels up, toes back. Maybe walk the hands down the legs a little further if you can't straighten the legs. Then opening the legs out and stretching those inner thighs. And then releasing the feet back to the mat. You can find butterfly pose if you wish, soles together, knees out, or bring yourself into a long line, feet mat width apart. Then turn the palms up, wherever you are, making sure you're comfortable around the pelvis, the lower back, mid-back, upper back. Send the shoulders down and away to the hips and have a little squeeze of the shoulder blades together. Take a turn of the head in both directions, making sure you find that comfortable space when you've done so. Close the eyes, take a nice long deep breath in and a long sigh out through the mouth. Let the ground support you, let the body be heavy. Relax the jaw, let the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth. Hold no tension through any part of the body, just scan it, and if you come across anything, give the muscle a squeeze and then let that muscle relax. Bringing yourself back to your senses, noticing the parts of the body that are touching the floor, the clothes that are touching the skin, the taste on the tongue, and the smells within your room space, the sounds of the inside, and maybe noticing sounds of the outside. If the eyes are closed, noticing colours and shapes on the back of the eyelids. And if the eyes are gently opening, just noticing what's around you. Being aware and present of your body laying here on your mat within your room. Knowing where you are right now, it's exactly where you should be. Starting to wriggle fingers, wriggle toes, maybe rotating the wrists and the ankles. If you wish to find a full body stretch, stretch the hands up and over the head, bring the feet together, point the toes, point the fingers, arch the back, flare the ribs. And then bringing the hands back up and over and the knees in towards the chest. Maybe have a little rock of that body from side to side. And then rolling onto your side, take a moment there with a long breath in and a long breath out. And then making your way into a seat. And when you find your seat, grow tall through the spine. Relax through the shoulders with a slight bow through the head. Take a long breath in. Long sigh out through the mouth. Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamiva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take a breath in, reach the hands up and over the head and bring the palms together at the top. And on an out breath, bring the hands to the chest and a soft gaze towards the floor. Breathe in wisdom and peace. Breathe out love and joy. From my heart to yours. Namaste.